Welcome, Greg. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
Good. Last time I saw you, I believe, was at Whale Day.
World Whale Day, Kalama
It
Park.
was World Whale Day. I know. I keep calling it Whale Day. You go back in this part of the. But it was quite an amazing day, and I guess we really should just talk about how great it really was for a minute.
It was fantastic. We had record crowds there. We're estimating over 25, probably close to 27,000 people. And, we were just saying afterwards when Mick Fleetwood was up on stage, and just the sea of people, and you see the locals and the young people and the old people and the visitors, and it's just a complete melting pot of everyone showing up. But the most important thing I always remind people of is people have a really great time at Whale Day. It's free, it's fun, it's for the entire community, and it goes off really pretty flawlessly.
It's amazing when you think of what there were 20,000 plus people there,
25,000
and no deaths,
no problem,
no problems. And you think that's the size of many cities.
Yeah.
That's bigger than some cities I know actually. And here you have all these people coming in, and everything was so beautiful and wonderful. And everyone enjoyed different parts of it. I saw some, people were just with their families and their kids doing
Right.
that, and some were doing the shopping, and there were some great local crafts, there was that whole thing going on. Then there was a whole environmental section, but the entertainment was amazing.
It was.
And the parade was great, and so it was just it was a memorable day. It went long this year. It went on till 7:00, so.
But start to finish, the entire event is flawless, and just really look forward to. And I say every year the most often asked question I get is, when is Whale Day next year? You know. And I always remind people it's pretty simple. It's always President's Day weekend. It's always Saturday of President's Day weekend. It's pretty easy to remember. So and next year it'll be on Valentine's Day, which will make it even more special.
Oh my gosh. It was on my birthday, this one, which was interesting enough. And then, Valentine's Day, wow, that's going to be amazing. It'll be
But Cindy,
for the love of whales.
Correct. You've already got the theme going there. The World Whale Day, though, is just part of a bigger event, which is the Maui Whale Festival. And it's really a 6-week event that goes on.
Right.
And literally there's something happening all the time. And the event that's happening this Thursday and Friday night are really seminal. It's really something, and I'm really proud to be able to do. We're partnering with the Westin Kaanapali. And on Thursday night, we are going to show the Maui's premiere of Blackfish, which is sort of the expose of animals in captivity, and in particular what's happened at SeaWorld over the years. And we're really honored to have the producer of the film, Manny Oteyza, will be here. And then, and he's going to be calling in later today.
Yeah, he'll be calling in about 2:20.
Okay, and we'll
I'm
have
really
him
looking forward to talking now. This, for people who may not have heard, this is a major motion picture. This was, a major production, amazing production, editing, graphic clips that tell the basis of the story, so we can kind of set it up so when Manny calls, people will know what they're going to be hearing about.
Yeah, and in addition to Manny, then we have Howard Garrett, who's the co-founder of the Orca network out of the Pacific Northwest. And this guy has been working tirelessly to free the orca whale, or killer whale, known as Lolita, who is really sort of the, unfortunate star of this movie as well, that she's been in the Miami Seaquarium in this undersized concrete jail for what?
I think 30 years.
40 years.
Is it 40 years?
40 years.
God.
So Howard is going to tell us about Lolita's story, and really it's heart-rending once you realize it. And the recent move to get her out, because now that the Pacific Northwest orcas have been listed as an endangered species, she's part of that group.
I didn't realize that. I had not heard that.
Yeah, they have very limited range. There's very limited numbers, and she's one of that tribe. She's one of that pod, and so
it would make it illegal to have
her in captivity.
Yeah,
she needs to be released. So that's the latest, and we'll talk about that. We'll tell the listeners how they can log on and where to find a petition and join that movement to free Lolita.
So this is an amazing opportunity, folks. I mean, we're saying on this major, amazing motion picture called Blackfish. This Thursday and Friday. Is it going to show both nights?
Just Thursday night.
It's just Thursday.
Thursday from 6 to 8, and it's open. It's free, as all our events are, to the public. But we encourage you to call ahead of time because literally the room is already half full. I can tell you that right now. So you need to call ahead of time at 249-8811 and reserve your seat. And this, what will happen is I'll be a part of a panel discussion. Howard and myself will have a bit of intro words. And then the Blackfish will roll, and then Manny will come on and talk about his vision in creating the movie, and then we'll interact with the audience on this. It'll be quite an evening for folks.
It's a very, very special event to have something like this. You don't get these major pictures for free, let alone the cost of what it takes to fly the producer in, and also to have Howard with the Lolita. It's a major expense for you, obviously, and it's a great gift to the community. For this, I've been very excited about it. I've been talking it up because this is a great opportunity to see a great film and learn and be educated. I mean, I was just educated. I didn't realize they were an endangered species. I saw the trailer, and I encourage people to at least go and look at the trailer because if you're wondering about it at all, you should go to see the trailer because the trailer is an excellent trailer. And it's heartrending just to look at the 2.5 minutes of this trailer is just amazing when you see the story and the clips there. It just moves you. It almost moves you to tears just seeing the clips.
Well, the notion of in this day and age of keeping animals this size, that literally their home range is hundreds, if not thousands, of miles. We're now seeing orca all the way up from Antarctica all the way to the Ecuador, and in the equator, right along those lines. So these animals we used to thought were fairly range bound. Some of them are, but many of them are not. But imagine for a second that you're a long distance runner, that you love to run marathons, and now someone puts you in a broom closet. Says that's your life.
Yeah. And if I was a person, I would understand. Being a mammal, you have no clue as to what's happening or why. There's no explanation given. So, I mean, it is such a cruel thing to do. To something that's done no harm to anyone, but we're exploiting for making money.
Yeah, it's it. And the thing is what people should be even more outraged about this situation is that, businesses are business, and they do things, and you have zoos and aquariums and things like this around the world, and many of them are new and new age, and they treat the animals differently. But the bottom line is, one of the things that really aggravates me about this situation, and I think people will see this clearly, is the hypocrisy. For instance, in the North Pacific, you have NOAA allowing the Eastern Tropical Tuna Fleet to kill over 10,000 dolphins a year. That's okay. But don't you dare swim with them off Lanai. That's illegal. Yeah. Right? And it's the same thing. There was a whale watch operator in Monterey, and she was out watching some orca tear apart a gray whale. So in the process of this, she picked up one of the pieces of the dead gray whale and threw it out towards the orca. They threatened to send her to jail for 25 years, seize her boat, and fine her over $150,000. Yet SeaWorld is allowed to reach into a bucket and throw dead fish to orca in captivity all day long, and it's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah.
So the hypocrisy of this, in terms of how we treat animals, it's almost like once they're in the cage, once they're in captivity, we'll forget about it. It's okay. But the truth of the matter is that it's really what we're talking about is something that's called public trust. These animals are all of our animals, and they're none of our animals. But the fact of the matter is that government agencies are allowing the public trust. They're allowing permits to put these animals in captivity. And I'll let Howard and Manny talk more about their experiences with these animals. But it is something that I think this is one of those films that's really long time in coming.
It's bad enough that we encroach as we do. I mean, there's a picture on the front page of the newspaper you saw in the Maui News as we're walking today, and there's a beautiful large humpback whale with, almost half of one side of the tail sliced off, either from a boat incursion with or maybe a net.
Likely from marine debris, likely had it wrapped and then got it amputated is really probably what happened there, yeah.
And we're doing this incursion already into their territories, and they're suffering who knows how much damage already from what we're doing, from the pollution and the junk and everything we have out there. We don't probably have time, but I mean, what do you think about all those, the marine life that's suffering from the atomic waste off Japan?
Well, that's just the issue, is that we have for decades now used our oceans as a large garbage dump.
Yeah.
We're just out of sight, out of mind. I mean, you remember those pictures of the barges in the 60s and 70s off the East Coast that had nowhere to go with all the garbage, driving around in the ocean out there and eventually dumping it in the ocean. And that's what we did for decades and decades. And the same thing is we went from natural fibers in the fishing industry, from hemp and rope, those type of things, to plastics. And now you have nets and lines and things that used to degrade maybe over 5 or 10 years. They're going to float out there for centuries now. They're going to kill. I was recently in Oman in the Arabian Sea, and we were diving in an area, and we came across this net, and it was a wall of death. There was dolphins in it. There was turtles in it. There was large, tuna and various game fish in there, all dead. And this net will continue to drift in the ocean and kill relentlessly forever, until it degrades. And who knows when that's going to happen.
Wow.
So these are all issues, and I think that, in addition to Blackfish on Thursday night, I want to highlight that on the following night, on Friday night, we're really what I call highlighting Wonder Women, whales and Wonder Women, heroes in whale research, is we have 3 amazing female scientists. And I point that out because, Cindy, one of the issues that we have, not only in the U.S. but around the world, is that when traditionally or historically, when girls get into that high school age, they just drop out of math and science, and it's a real issue. And I think on Friday you're going to see really a tale of inspiration, and you're going to meet Elsa from Patagonia, from Chile, who's been doing Elsa Cabrera. She's done this amazing groundbreaking work with blue whales, protecting blue whales off Chile. And not only that, she's discovered this new species, what appears to be a new species of blue whales.
I think we've got Manny on the phone. Aloha, is this Manny?
Yeah, the Cindy?
Yes, it is. Hi, Manny. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad you can call in. I'm in studio here with Greg Kaufman.
Oh, fantastic.
Aloha.
Yeah.
Aloha.
We were
Looking
just...
forward to be in Hawaii tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to having you. You're going to be here Thursday, and we were just talking about the event on Thursday night in your movie. And I think Greg has probably some questions to ask that really, and I just have to say, I saw the trailer and I was just blown away. Beautifully done. Excellent production. And
thank you.
you could see the work even in just that. And so, Greg, what are you going to be talking about at the event on Thursday night?
Well,
this free event, I should
yes,
say.
I think it's really important, Manny, that folks hear from you exactly, why, what was your impetus in making Blackfish? Where did it come from?
It all came definitely from our director, Gabriella Copperthwaite. And what had happened was she had taken her twin boys to SeaWorld like a few years ago, and it always, for her, it had raised the question, what happens, at these shows? And it was this whole idea of peeling back the onion, because, when we go to these things, you're kind of there for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, for the Shamu show, and then you're gone.
Right.
And from there, it kind of raised the questions of what's happening here. But definitely, Don Brancho's death kind of stirred up the whole idea, like, how does this animal turn on its trainer that it's known for decades?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of just raised the question, and that's kind of where it all started. And then Gabriella had called me about producing the project.
I think people are amazed when they start learning about how, first of all, how really what limited abilities these animals have in their habitats. I mean, the permits that NOAA issues for these animals, you would think that the size of these tanks would have to be, just by nature, 5, 10, 15 times larger than they are. But I think that's one of the most amazing things, is how little these tanks can be to hold these animals.
And that's just at the least, when, the things we learned, was that, they swim, 100 miles or more a day. And, you know, it's stuff like that where we didn't know at all. I mean, I was coming into this project knowing nothing about orca whales except for what, you know, going to a park, you know. So it was a definite learning experience for all of us. And, you know, we're so happy to at least share, you know, by the film, the knowledge that we've learned, you know, to the masses.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that, you know, it's always when you see a happy show, you know, whether it be a play
Right.
or whatever it is, you can never imagine the actors arguing with each other, right? It's always happy, you know. And there's that theme park that's the happiest place on earth, right? That we won't mention by name, but sure,
Right.
they're like every other business. And the truth of the matter is that these animals, that when they are in captivity, they live shorter lives, they
Right.
become psychologically harmed, and they become physically harmed. They actually start attacking one another. You know, how do you and those things are not seen once the curtain is dropped, right?
Oh, not at all. And, you know, it's just amazing the things you just find out. And the thing is, these animals and any animal, they can't tell us all those things. You know, that's why, you know, we're hoping to do the best we can in sharing, you know, with the knowledge we have and the information we found out, this kind of information to everybody, because who's going to speak for the whales, the dolphins, anybody, you know?
Yeah, I agree. You know, the thing that always amazes me when I see animals in captivity, and whether it be a polar bear or an orca, is just how habituated they become and how mundane their lives have become. You see them just swimming back and forth in the same repeated pattern like a jailed prisoner.
Right. I mean, that's what causes the dorsal fin collapse.
Correct.
You know, because of them not swimming and all that, except in circles or just lying there.
Now let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Obviously, you probably run into this group called the AAZPA, or the American the Aquarium and Zoo Association, which are fairly powerful, and SeaWorld. What was the lobbying push against you and against the film once it came out?
I mean, we never had to deal with them directly. It has always been SeaWorld and their PR machine more
Right.
than anything else. You know, from, you know, their statements, their promo ads and all that. I mean, we had even requested, you know, after their latest attacks or accusations, that why don't we do at least a live debate, you know, so that we can respond to their accusations. But of course that was denied. I mean, that's really been what we've been encountering more and more, or you know, is the PR attacks.
Were some of the people
SeaWorld.
were some of the people you interviewed, and I noticed you really had quite a few interviews, even from the trailer that I saw.
Right.
Were you feeling that these people were told not to speak to you? Were they threatened if they were to speak to you?
And the ex SeaWorld trainers that we had interviewed had all left SeaWorld, so we were able to speak with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dr. Naomi Rose is a good friend of mine. I work with
Oh,
her.
yes.
I work with her every year at the International Whaling Commission, and we serve on a couple committees together. And you know, one of the things that she and I were talking about, of course, she wrote one of the seminal reports about SeaWorld and animals in captivity in 2011. But you know, Naomi said to me once, it's been amazing how SeaWorld has basically commanded that whole world and almost told the government what to do for all these years. They were untouchable.
Right.
And
because I think the thing is, no one questioned anything.
Correct. And the sort of the leverage that finally came through was the death of this trainer, and then it became an OSHA issue, and that was really what brought the crack in the kingdom, I think, because they could be questioned now for labor violations, right, for the first time.
Correct. Yeah.
And that would expose then the treatment of the animals, and then it exposed really the relationship between the trainers and the animals and the safety factor there, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think it definitely exposed a lot of issues in both, you know, human and animal welfare that I feel no one, you know, really was aware of if you were not inside the circle.
I saw one clip where, and I don't know if it was actually that whale in question, but it was a capturing of a young orca. It looked like a very young orca, and they were being herded. It looks by speedboat, and they actually literally lassoed them or pulling them aboard, and it was heartrending. So I guess there were no regulations on the age or separating them from any of their from their mother or anything at that time. They were just allowed to pick and choose what they took and there was no limitations on that, huh?
Yeah, that was during the whole Penn Cove captures, all that old footage, and it was the separating of mothers and their babies, which happened back then as they're hunting the whales, and it's also happening now when some of the mothers and babies are separated at the parks currently.
Yeah, the issue, especially with the orca, is that I think originally, they were brought in almost like the lion in the cage, right? This fierce predator of the sea. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think that SeaWorld or any of the early captors really had any appreciation for the socialness of these animals or the range that they lived in. I think it was and continues to be what can sell tickets, right?
Right, and and most likely back then, no one had there was so limited information, and all we know is from just looking at that footage of just how sad it was, as they're separating the families.
One of the things I found interesting, and maybe you have too, is the sudden and overt whiplash that's happened. I mean, we've had Willie Nelson and a number of rock groups, et cetera, refuse to play, and
right,
and that has resonated. What have you seen and heard so far? What's your sense?
I mean, definitely, there's so many people now that have watched the movie, and definitely with the social media and emails and tweets that we've received, we get the same messages that everyone's just shocked by the information that we've been able to show. And, I think, from via the Willie Nelson, Heart, and all these bands, I think it's just the thing of everyone is now being aware of what happens at these parks. And they are willing to take the stand of, not performing at the shows there. I mean, I feel, especially after you've seen the movie, it's that whole idea, like, what can I do? And it can be the basic thing of not buying a ticket. I think everyone can do a little something, no matter what.
I agree. I'll tell you a couple of stories is that we hold a World Whale Day on Maui every year, and we just finished our 34th annual one. And about the 14th annual Whale Day, this was about the time when Budweiser bought SeaWorld. And we started a campaign here locally called Bud's Out Until Corky's Out. And so we removed all Budweiser products from our Whale Watch and EcoTour vessels. And I was on stage when I announced this, and we produced T-shirts and everything. Within minutes, I got a phone call from Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch corporate. It happened that fast.
Wow.
Within minutes of standing on that stage, and they were livid. They were absolutely livid. And I said, put Corky back in the wild and we'll buy your beer. It's as simple as that. And I think that the other issue that happened here, Manny, is that they decided they were going to build a shopping mall at the entrance of Kihei, and they were going to put a dolphinarium into it. And we created a campaign here that resulted in the largest public input ever on a bill in Maui County, and we passed. Now Maui County and South Carolina are the only two places in the United States it's actually illegal to hold cetaceans in captivity.
Wow.
We have a bill here that prohibits it. And on a Thursday night, Joanne Johnson, who was a council member at the time who championed, she'll be in the audience Thursday night as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we're pretty proud of that. In Maui, we like to say thanks, but no tanks.
Yes. And Manny, was it hard for you originally? I mean, doing a film like this, it's very expensive, and it usually for people doing documentaries, it can be difficult getting funding. How'd you go about when you decided to do this topic, getting your funding for doing this? It's rather intensive, hard work that it took to make this documentary.
I mean, we were lucky enough to find an initial investor, Our Turn Productions, who was able to fund the whole production.
Wow.
I mean, this is the first project they've ever done. So I think we were just all lucky, that we had investors that were willing to take a chance on us.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
This is Gabriella's second feature film documentary, and this is my first one, feature length. We both have a background doing documentaries for National Geographic, Discovery Channel networks, but definitely, to have this as our one of our first ones, especially for me, was huge.
How long did it take you to create the movie?
It was about a 2-year process, and then when we got into Sundance January of last year, it definitely has been like a year of promoting the film, film festivals, the theatrical release, and it's showing on CNN. So it has been a long journey.
Now, somebody told me, of course, people love conspiracy theories, but someone told me that SeaWorld had heavy influence at the Oscars against this movie. What do you say about that?
I mean, I know we've heard those reports too. I mean, I don't know. I mean, part of me is like, there's definitely a voting when it comes to where it's a documentary branch that handles the whole Academy voting when it comes to the 5 nominations. Right. I mean, we were lucky and grateful that we made it to the short list of 15 movies, but definitely this was a very difficult year with so many documentaries. Yeah. And we're just so happy to even get as far as we did, from that being nominated for the British Academy Awards and all that. So for us, we're just so grateful that so many people have seen our movie.
Where do you see ultimately? Where do you hope this leads?
I mean, for me, and this is where there's definitely more experienced people from our trainers and Naomi Rose and all that can speak better on the subject. I mean, they have been talking about sea pens. I mean, I think our goal definitely when making the movie was about having the subject that no one really ever talked about being talked now in the public and the world. So for me personally, that's where I'm going. We've accomplished something that, we that we're very happy that now people are talking about this captivity issue.
Well, I'll tell you a story. One of my interns at the foundation, she's from University in Georgia, and they went to have a premiere of Blackfish for one night. It sold out 7 nights in a row.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
and the effect was so profound, Manny, that it was the same time that the Georgia Aquarium was trying to import the belugas.
Oh, the belugas, right.
It killed that movement.
I remember that. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that where we're just like wowed by the whole thing, especially, when it reaches the younger generation and the kids that, they take a stand too. So we're just like over the moon about the reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point you get entropy, right? It just starts moving on its own.
Right, exactly.
And I think to me, that's one of the challenges I think you always have when you expose or you create a campaign is people think you're targeting a business per se. But to me, I've always spoke about this issue, not necessarily about SeaWorld per se, but as I was saying earlier, sort of the hypocrisy, how NOAA allows this to happen. Like I was saying before, is that it's okay to kill dolphins associated with fishing, but don't you dare swim with them in the wild. It's okay. Right. It's okay to keep them in concrete coffins in the Keys, all up and down the Keys. There's swim with programs that are in these little 6 foot by 8 foot cells, but don't you dare go offshore and try to swim with one of these animals. And it just seems to me that part of this hypocrisy is exposing that there are government agencies that are condoning this, that are letting this happen. And there isn't
totally.
there isn't the oversight that should be there. And so what happens, as you know, if there's no oversight, business fills in the gaps.
Right, and for businesses, it's all about making money.
Right, and I think that's what happens is that when people go to a facility that has captive animals on display, this is what they say to themselves. If it wasn't okay, someone wouldn't allow this to happen.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, it does happen. And it isn't okay, right? I mean, ultimately, that's the bottom line, is that what is happening and maybe what is being portrayed there. And what bothers me as a scientist is it's the same old kitsch. It's the same old repeated story over and over again to get these animals to perform, to stick a flipper up, to do a spy hop, to do whatever. Everything that they would not do on command in the wild.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Manny, it's been great talking to you. I can hardly wait for a Thursday night. I hope we're looking forward to welcoming you to Maui. We got beautiful weather here. We got whales everywhere. You're going to love it.
Oh, that's great.
And
I'm looking forward to it.
And for those listening, we're going to do VIP whale watches on Friday and Saturday, and Manny will be joining us out of. So if you want to talk story and hang with us on Friday at 11:30 and Saturday 11:30 at Lahaina, we're going to go out and watch whales as they should be seen, right, Manny? Wild and free.
Definitely.
Wild
Exactly.
How do people, they just call 249-8811?
That's right, to book, yes.
Right,
and we got limited seats. We got a lot of people booking right now.
What a great treat.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Manny. We look forward to seeing you Thursday.
Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you.
Have a good flight out. Aloha.
Aloha.
You got it. Aloha. Bye.
Bye. Oh, that's nice. Really nice to talk to him. What a success story. See, I love it when there are things that happen like this where someone really takes a risk and does, and it's a lot of work doing a documentary. I know I've done movies and I've worked with people who do documentaries, a ton of work. And then when you have something that really can make a difference, it really inspires other people to also do something like that, to try to make the difference as well.
Well, I think what happens is that, especially with something like Blackfish, touches a lot of people's nerves because I think there's that element when you go there. You're on vacation. You want to have fun. You don't want to think about serious
and the
stuff.
kids want to see something fun, so you think,
Most people you talk to will walk away and on the drive home, the flight home, they're thinking, I wonder, is that okay for that animal? I wonder if they really like that, and people are left with that lingering question. And I think,
and I mean, God bless them, but they're going to learn, and they're going to learn the hard way. In this case, which is such a unique situation, it was the explosion of learning the hard way with the death of someone who thought they were doing something good, and who knows how much they saw behind the scenes as well. I mean, that we'll find out in the movie. We're going to be having a call in here real shortly with another man who's on a campaign that's also very, very important, and he's also going to be present on Thursday night as well, right?
Yeah, Howard Garrett from the Orca Network out of the Pacific Northwest, who's been really working tirelessly to free the orca whale named Lolita. And I believe when you were talking about that footage you saw out of Penn Cove, that was really her being ripped away from her mother back in those days. And I'll share when Howard comes on my encounter with Lolita, because I have had an encounter with her. And
in her captivity?
Yeah. And it was one of the other.
Well, there was that awful footage we saw of what was happening just this later. I think it was in December when they were capturing that white dolphin in Japan. Because you saw that, I'm sure, the capturing, and it was just so heartrending to see all these dolphins and going for the money for that white dolphin.
Well, you got the issue with Taiji and the dry fisheries and separating those animals for export, et cetera. There's this new, I think it's called Ocean World or something like that, being built in China. And I can tell you right now that the backlash of Blackfish is affecting this in China, because
in China,
their plan is to put a number of orca in captivity there as well. And
but if they're an endangered, how does that work? If you have an endangered species and you have a country like China, do they play by the same rules?
First of all, not all orca are endangered. So the Pacific Northwest stock that Lolita came from has been declared endangered. So that's sort of the leverage there. But many of the populations are not endangered. And what you have is you have countries that are willing to just, it's slave trade. They're willing to buy, you hire, believe it or not, there are these firms that you engage, and these guys go out and capture these animals. And so, an orca whale, I don't know the going rate now, and Howard may know, but you're talking $250,000 to $500,000 to go buy one of these if you can get your hands on it.
It is slave trade.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
So a nation like China will just deal with countries that U.S. won't let you import them anymore, et cetera. And so a lot of this work has been done trying to do husbandry, and that's why you see these facilities are being gobbled up. Like marine land will be bought out by SeaWorld because they're after the gene pool, or they're after these animals. They're after these breeding males or receptive females to see if they can keep these stocks alive. And basically what you're going to have pretty soon, if they're successful at this, is you're going to have animals that are born in captivity that will never know nothing more than a 40 by 40 foot concrete tank.
What a nightmare. Before Howard calls in, I do want to mention Ann Rolero. Hi, Ann. Ann wanted me to remind people that there is an important day on Friday, I believe. Yes. There's going to be this campaign. Now, I mean, we hear these figures about the terrible intrusion of these butts on the beach. People go to the beach, they smoke, they put their butts on the beach. Now, people say, we have a freedom to smoke on the beach. What are you doing? You're encroaching on our freedom. How many butts on the beach are found when they do cleanups?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
I'll tell you a story. We started a Keep Your Butts Off the Beach campaign. It must be 15 years now. And now the county has finally picked it up. You can go to change.org and /petitions, and there you'll find our petition there for Pacific Whale Foundation, and you can sign this. But on this Friday at County Council, they're going to be taking up this matter to pass an ordinance. I once was over on the Hulapoi Beach in Lanai a couple of years ago and picked up a water bottle, and I walked in about less than 5 minutes, filled that water bottle with butts.
And that's on Lanai without all the people and the traffic.
And put the lid on it, and I went up to the manager of the Manelli Bay Hotel and said, "This is what's on your beach.
Yep.
You need a butts off your beach campaign because this stuff."
Not only is it gross for that, but explain what happens when that gets into the waters.
Well, the issue is that most of these cigarettes are made out of plastic filters. And they do not degrade, and they're largely consumed by fish or turtles, and that's where they end up. And we found even whales, and dolphins, we found them in the stomachs of these animals. Obviously, they may eat some fish as well that have consumed these things. And they'll impact their large intestines, and these animals will literally starve to death or die from toxicity from these plastics in their gut. And they do not go away. We now the best estimate for a cigarette butt is about 150 years before it's gone.
Gosh.
And even the ones that look like the fibrous ones are lasting, decades.
So when you have thousands and thousands of these, and the whole island, of course, surrounded by beaches, and everyone going and smoking in different places, I mean, you think of the impact that's having.
Right.
The deadly impact that's having on any of the wildlife, the marine life that's out there. It's a terrible impact, and it's so easy to just say, don't do it. Don't kill the fish in the marine life by smoking and throwing your butts on the beach.
Well, there's nothing worse than if and I know people smoke. They lose a sense of smell, but there's nothing worse than sitting next to an ashtray, and there's nothing worse than laying on a beautiful beach that smells like an ashtray. I can tell you that right now. And so, and there are a lot of smokers who are conscientious and don't put their butts on the beach, but there's a lot that do, and it's just the amount that is picked up every year at the Get the Drift and Bag It campaign, that the marine debris campaign that happens every year, that PWF spearheaded in 1986, and what we've done through the Butts Off the Beach is it's the number one thing that appears in every marine debris survey around the world. When you clean up the beaches, it's cigarette butts.
Yeah. And it's just carelessness, and by being careless, you never think you're being deadly. You're just being careless.
No.
But everyone being careless amounts to something that is deadly. So so this is going to be Friday at what time? I think it's 4 o'clock.
4 to 6, I believe. There.
4 to 6.
Yeah, and then Friday, I started to say at the Westin Kaanapali, Evenings with the Experts, second day, is when we will have our research scientist Elsa Cabrera from Chile will be here talking about blue whales off of the area of Patagonia, and she has done an amazing thing. She got 99% of the people of Chile to stand up and oppose a large wind turbines along the coast there for fear of impacts of the marine environment. And it was the biggest, most successful environmental campaign ever in the history of Chile. And this woman is a wonder woman. And then we'll have Dr. Cristina Castro from this portal fishing village in Puerto Lopez in Ecuador. She'll be here and talking about the humpback whale work there.
On the phone. Aloha, is this Howard?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry if I'm tardy getting
It's
to the
okay.
party.
We have no problem. I talk a lot, and Greg Kaufman, who's with me, between the two of us, we could talk forever. But I'm glad you.
Okay.
I'm glad you did call in. Welcome, Howard. Greg Kaufman's here with me.
Hey, Howard.
Yes. Hi, Greg.
Hi. Well, Howard will be joining us on Thursday night, along with Manny and myself, and we'll be showing Blackfish. But more importantly, I think Howard is that the orca whale known as Lolita, maybe inform our visitors viewers and listeners who haven't followed her tale. She is literally the poster child for the anti-captivity campaign and for Blackfish, as far as I'm concerned.
Uh-huh. Yes. Well, she is a very, very special whale, both for her demonstration of her courage and her, I think somehow she is holding on in hopes of coming home. I mean, she has incredible strength and endurance. All the others had died by 1987, and yet she somehow remains in good shape. And she is also the best candidate to return to her native waters. And in just the recent weeks, we have some real new hope that we might be able to do that. I'd love to try to explain that. It's a little complicated. There's a lot of history, but there's a real prospect that within about a year, we may have a green light to return her to where she was born and raised.
Now, for those who don't know, Lolita was taken out of the Puget Sound area when she was very young, correct?
Right. We don't know the exact age, but around 4 or 5 years old.
And she comes from, the pods there have different letters, and she comes from which pod up there?
From L pod, and we know that from her calls, because she still uses the dialect of her pod within the southern resident community. The different pods and matrolines have slightly different calls, certain identifiers for that particular subfamily within the big clan. And she uses the dialect of L pod, so that's how we narrow it down.
And that group of southern residents are now listed as an endangered species as of a couple of years ago, right?
Right, 2005, they were listed. And that's part of the key to getting her back, because in that listing language, someone put in this paragraph that says, this does not apply to any captives, and that means her. She's the only one. So it took a petition to NOAA to undo that and remove that exclusion, and NOAA agreed that is warranted, but the process requires another year of comment and deliberation before it becomes final.
So you could go. They're now accepting public comment right now. Is that not correct?
That's right. Yeah, you can go to our website, orcanetwork.org,
right,
and just pull down the Lolita menu and just hit the top of it, Lolita, and it explains all of the points to make, really, in your comments.
Right. So the goal will be to return her in likely a sea pen environment. Would that be correct?
Right. to a sort of a halfway house, basically to just relocate her with all of the care and even the personnel. And that's really pretty important because she builds bonds the best she can, and that is with the trainers, even though they revolve from time to time. But her best known and trusted humans should come with her, and her diet and her medical care. She isn't getting any antibiotics on a regular basis or any other particular care. But anyway, she should have her veterinary staff and all her staff with her for the transition.
Right. So we know when Keiko was rehabilitated through a C-pin, it was fairly effective. So we know it can work, right?
Oh yeah. He really did prove that when he was lowered into his native waters, that moment, that first minute, 5 minutes, and from then on, he showed that he thrived. He loved it. He just, even though he had been strapped into an airplane for about 11 hours, he immediately flexed and began to swim around and explore every little nook and cranny and just thrived in his home waters. His dive times improved. All of his cardiovascular parameters got better. He just, he loved it when he got into his home waters, and I think that's our model.
Now, Lolita is currently, for lack of a better term, incarcerated at the Miami Sea Aquarium. Is that right? Not right?
That's a good term. That's exactly it. I mean, it's got to be equivalent to a straitjacket practically. I mean, she can barely turn around. It's only 35 feet by 80 feet by 20 feet deep, and she's over 20 feet long.
Wow.
Let me tell you my encounter with Lolita in the Miami Sea Aquarium, Howard. She's one of two I've ever seen in captivity because I refused to visit animals in captivity. Keiko was the other one because I helped advise on the movie Free Willy, so I wanted to see the animal. And we were there for the Marine Mammal Conference, and the Seaquarium hosted us. And I know we were in trouble when this is a place for our listeners that claims to be the home of Flipper. And when you walked in, there was a bottlenose dolphin in probably a 4 foot by 3 foot deep mud puddle. And this is before I encountered Lolita. Well, they bring her out to do a show for about 1,100 marine mammal scientists. And she comes out, and you couldn't have asked for a better, or in this case, a worse performance, because she refused to perform for the scientists. She swam around, she banged her head against the side of the tank, and absolutely refused to do anything. At which that point, Howard, I stood up, and at the top of my lungs said, "This is an atrocity. For we scientists who study these animals in the wild, I'm not going to be subjected to this. Please, let's all leave." And about 20% of the audience gathered with me, and we walked out.
Wonderful.
But it struck me at the time, at Howard, is that even those scientists who purportedly have these animals in the best interest, we're still going to sit there in the audience and try to be entertained by this poor animal. And I think ultimately, when you think about Lolita and where she's come from in the Pacific Northwest, and that she's living this life incarcerated in this concrete coffin, can you imagine the day she sees that, she feels the C-pin and the freedom of doing
I know. I know. It'll be one of the most glorious moments in human and animal history. It'll be wonderful to see how she responds to finally returning home. I honestly believe, no way I can prove this, but I believe she has clear memories of her home waters and her life with her family. And I think she'll feel the familiarity of that water right away and be relieved that she's finally home. I think she hopes for that.
How can you not? We all do that. Even if you haven't been home for 20 years, you still remember the smell, you still remember this feel, right? Let me ask you, someone told me, and I don't know if this is urban legend or not, and you'd be the guy to tell us, someone told me years ago that they did put a J11 or a playback system in her tank and played back some of the L-pod sounds to her.
Right. Well, that was actually a kind of ambush journalism. It was a tape of a super pod. At that time, there were almost 100, and on a clear, still night, they were all having a big party right out in Harrow Strait by San Juan Island.
Right.
And Ken Balcom recorded that on a digital tape, very clear, and then Dateline NBC was doing a segment on Lolita. So they smuggled in this little tape player and at poolside played it to her with a couple of cameras on her. And she came halfway out of the water and leaned over to where her inner ear was as close to that tape player as she possibly could get, held that position as long as possible, dropped back down and came back up. And it was obviously, a very interested response.
It's for those who haven't learned or read about Lolita's story, you really got to go to the orcanetwork.org and become familiar with this. And Thursday night, meet Howard firsthand. And of course, on Friday and Saturday, we're going to be doing some VIP whale watches, and Howard's going to be joining us out there. We're going to be amongst the humpback whales, wild and free as they should be, and just to talk story. And really, this is the equivalent. And we hear these stories all the time of humans being incarcerated for crimes they didn't do for 40, 50 years and then being let out. This is an orca tale of the same magnitude.
It certainly is, absolutely. I am so looking forward to this. I'll see you Thursday.
All right, thank you.
Are you doing a documentary? Are you collecting footage on this to make a movie about this?
We certainly will. We don't have the crew right now, but certainly, I mean, when we get into gear, when we get a green light, I mean, we've got a lot of footage over the years of events and all that, but yes, oh yes. I mean, we intend this to be a major media production and just get the word out to everybody as it unfolds. So.
And is there a petition people can sign online?
There are many petitions. The main one right now is the NOAA comment to convince NOAA not only to include her with her family, which they've already agreed in principle to do, but to impress upon them that the proposal for her return home, the transport, the rehabilitation, the care in a sea pen, the gradual release will be absolutely safe, and that it is where a protected animal should be rather than stuck in a tank in Miami doing tricks.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Howard. Very well spoken. Appreciate you calling in today. So glad to have you on the air here. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday night there at the Evening with the Experts.
Thanks very much.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's Howard Garrett, Orca Network. Go to orcanetwork.org and click on Lolita. It's the third tab over, and you'll see you can make your comments here and do this and share it with your friends. If you're on Facebook, send this out. But please, more importantly, come meet these incredible people. Meet Howard, who's dedicated his life to really exposing and getting Lolita freed, and Manny for producing this incredible movie. And we're so excited to be able to premiere it here on Maui. And again, it's the Kaanapali, the Westin in Kaanapali, 6 p.m. on Thursday, and then Evenings with the Experts continues on Friday at 6 p.m. as well, with the blue whales, humpback whales from Chile, Ecuador, and humpback whales from here in Hawaii as well.
And you should call 249-8811 because you could also sign up for that whale watch. Those are going to go so fast, and you need to get a seat. So it's free, but do call 249-8811 to reserve your seat.
Yes, and you need to reserve your seat, especially for the Blackfish and for Friday's event as well. It's going to be great. It's free, it's informative, and even if you have an inkling or haven't even become aware of this, now's the time.
That's all the time we have. Aloha.